Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the first two episodes of WandaVision. We were gracefully given two episodes for the series premiere, which I'm definitely happy with because I didn't find them too amazing, to be totally honest. I'll get into spoilers in the second half of this review, but going into it, the first episode I didn't like as much as the second episode, and I'm hoping the second episode I don't like as much as whatever the third episode is going to be next Friday. But going through it, the main thing that caught me off guard was the fact that they really lean into the whole sitcom thing a lot more than I was expecting them to. I thought, all right, we know that's the premise. At least if you go in, with the trailer. I think even if you know like the basic premise, it's like, oh, they're kind of going through time through sitcoms. Like they're going through the different versions of classic TV shows. I was like, all right, I'm going into it. I was expecting that, and then I was expecting the other half to be like, oh, here's a little tease of what's going to happen. Here's kind of how this is playing out. There's a million questions just from the trailer alone. And going into the episode, it's about the exact same. Just honestly, with less excitement. The whole first episode, I was kind of waiting. Like I was watching, and I'm like, all right, they're doing a good job with the whole parody stuff. I think both episodes they do a good job with it. I was like, all right, then it's a parody 50 show. I think they're doing a good job. They're doing, it's 4:3 aspect ratio. Obviously, it's black and white. The way they do the shots and everything is like, oh, this is classic sitcom. Everything's a bunch of wide shots because they're on this set or they're on that set. They have an actual opening that's an old school 50s show opening. And so I was enjoying it. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And they're kind of figuring things out. Like even in the very beginning, it's just like, oh, they don't know what's happening because, just like us, something weird is happening. That's basically all we know about this show. They're somehow going through like these weird TV sitcoms. We don't know if it's because of Wanda. We don't know if it's because of a secret organization or what's going to happen. We don't know if they're dead. We don't know if this is before Endgame or after Endgame, but it seems like they're actually alive and that these are real people. So I'm like, that must mean it's after Endgame because obviously they're all back. So I don't know exactly how this is playing out. I don't know what the timeline is. It's just very interesting to watch because I'm like, where in the world does this take place? Is this going to be an alternate universe? Because obviously this is supposed to lead into the multiverse of madness with Doctor Strange. So I'm like, maybe this isn't even in continuity with the MCU movies, and maybe that's why it works. And we're going to find that out later. And it's just like, surprise, these aren't even the same people. I don't know. There's a million questions. And the show didn't do anything. And I didn't expect any answers. I mean, it's the first two episodes. But it didn't even, like, excite me to really want to find out. Like, the trailer did more because I'm like, oh, because obviously they show a few more things. But the whole first episode is genuinely just the parody. And admittedly, so is the second episode. They're really just two parodies of old school classic sitcoms. And it was just like, okay, well, that's cool. They do a good job with that. They definitely do a great job with that. Admittedly, like, I used to watch some of the old shows and they'd be on reruns, watch, I Dream of Jeannie, things like that. And I thought they did a fantastic job. I was like, yeah, these are good parodies. They're definitely the way that they come up with like, ridiculous excuses and then they have the laugh track and all that stuff. I was like, yeah, these are good parodies. These are definitely, they make me feel like I was watching, some old shows. Unfortunately, I don't care about that. That's not what I was here for. I was expecting that to be like, okay, they kind of do that. That's where they are, where they're basically, time jumping, but through different sitcoms. And I was like, all right, I love that concept. I like that idea. And execution, it's good. As far as the actual parody stuff, they're in those sitcoms. Great job. But the overarching story, they do nothing with. So, honestly, good episodes. They're decent. But I think you could wait till episode 3, which I'm hoping is definitely more entertaining and kind of gets into like the meat of the series, because the first two episodes definitely don't. So my recommendation, as crazy as it is, I would honestly say just wait until episode 3, because it might not be worth your time because nothing really happens. Like, I'm going to watch each episode because I'm going to be doing my reviews, but I really don't think this was truly worth watching. Like, nothing actually happened that's even noteworthy, to be totally honest. Like, everything that they did was like, all right, yeah, especially if you watch the trailer, it's like, all right, well, yeah, I was excited for this already in the trailer. I was kind of hoping it would get into it at least a tiny bit. And I guess technically they did about as tiny as they could, where it was literally just like, here you go. And it's like, oh, cool. The stuff from the trailer, like the premise of the show is basically what they teased you with. And it was like, all right, but that's why I'm here already. Like, I was already teased with the trailer. And it was basically like a tease. Like, you would literally have to go into this knowing nothing at all. And even then, I don't think it would entertain you that much. It would just be like, oh, okay, it's like, I mean, the episodes themselves at least, it's like, oh, they're doing these parody shows, but everything outside of that, whatever is happening in the real world, because I don't know, it's like it's hard to tell what's real and what any of this stuff is going to be. They don't really entice you with any of that. Like, they do it more so in the second episode, but even then, not much at all. I think the third episode, because of just the way it kind of ramped up, but especially by the end of the second one, I think the third episode is where they're really going to kick it in. So that might end up being the case. But as of now, I kind of feel like they should have done an hour and a half premiere, just based on how slow paced the story is in the first two episodes. It genuinely just feels like, honestly, the best way I could truly describe it is like, oh, they're almost like really, really high quality special YouTube videos that you would find where somebody was just like, I want to make an episode or two episodes that are like some really classic sitcoms, and they just spent a bunch of money to make it look like an old show, and they did all the silly jokes with the laugh track, and it was like a perfect parody of an old thing. And that's really it. That's like, you could literally just watch these two episodes and you would get nothing whatsoever. You could probably start at episode 3 and not a single thing would change. It would just be like, okay, there's like a tiny little thing at the end of episode 2. So before getting into spoilers, that's all I can really say. I honestly think people could wait until episode 3 because not much really happens in the first two episodes. So I'm hoping episode 3 really kicks it up and things start to get even crazier, because they definitely tease it and they have moments. Even in the first episode, I thought for sure, I was like, oh, this is where things start to kick off. And technically they do, but they also kind of just go back to normal for a minute. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I thought the episodes were decent, but not much to it. So get into full-on spoilers if you haven't seen it. Honestly, I could spoil it and it wouldn't, like I said, you could probably just skip to episode 3 and you wouldn't really miss much of anything. But if you don't care, I'm going to get into spoilers. So we'll start with episode 1. Like I said, I thought they did a great job with the whole parody element. I was like, okay, this is cool. They do all their wide shots and like it looks like you're on this set, then you slide on over and now you're in the kitchen set or you're on the work set. I thought they did a good job. They have the actual parody opening, all that stuff I thought was good. And then we get to the dinner scene where the boss starts choking. I was like, okay. Whole episode, it was classic. It was like, here's your straight on shots like an old TV show. And then once he starts choking, that's when things change, because we start to get more modern techniques where it's like, okay, now we're getting close-ups. It's not just big wide shots for the set. It's like, here's a close-up on Wanda, here's a close-up on Vision, here's a close-up of Kitty. I'm just gonna call her Kitty because that's who she was in that 70s show. But Deborah Jo Rupp. So it's like they're getting close-ups on the characters. They're doing like the music is kind of droning in, and like they're doing like the slow zooms, and I'm like, okay, it's time to get exciting. Like they're kind of frozen because they're still very confused. It's like they don't know where they've come from. Like there's still so many questions that they have, the same questions we have. Like, what's just in general, what the heck is happening? So I thought it was really about to ramp up. Like, okay, things are about to kind of really kick off and get super crazy. And I figured they would still be a little weird. Like, you could tell that they didn't really know what was going on just from the trailer. So I was like, okay, they're gonna dive into it a little bit. But even in that moment, it didn't seem like they were that affected where they started to question things. It was just like, they sat there. She's, the wife is just like, stop it. Again, then she's laughing at first, and then she's starting to tear up. So I thought it was going to kind of break for a second, and then we start to see them be like, what is happening here? But then they ultimately fix it. Vision kind of pulls the food out of them, and then it was just like, okay. And then it went back to the wide shot, and nothing, it just ends, and I was like, They were like this close, and I thought we were about to like really kick into the main story, and it was like, nope. They solve the problem. They add their little rings, and they're just like, we'll figure it out. And then they kiss, and then they look at the camera, and the episode ends, and then it pans out from the TV. Someone just writes in a journal, and they close the journal, and then the episode ends. And I was like, that wasn't even really a tease. It was just like, okay, you showed me what I already knew from the trailer. And I think literally anyone watching this already knows. Like, I think we'd be pretty hard pressed to find someone that goes into this 100% blank. They have like no freaking clue what's going on with this show. They're just like, WandaVision, that sounds cool, and then they just pick it up, never watching any of the MCU stuff or anything. And I'm like, considering the audience of this, it's like I feel like they could have just kind of pushed things. It's not like they're really bringing in that many new people. They're bringing in the people that already care, because they're curious what's going to happen going forward in the MCU. So I was like, it felt oddly slow paced to have both episodes. Honestly, the first two episodes basically just tease what the trailer teased with less excitement. So that was the first one, and then the second episode I thought was definitely funnier. Him kind of Vision being drunk because he had the gum, and they did it like old school show where it's like, oh, he's a robot, so he looks human on the outside, he can literally phase through stuff, but on the inside he's still he's still all gear, so a simple piece of gum will kind of mess him up. So I was like, all right, it was a funnier premise. I thought they did a funnier job, and they were teasing. They're going a little bit harder with it. They're at the little the committee meeting, and once it ends, they have the radio playing, and I was like, okay, I like this idea. Like, someone's trying to get in touch with Wanda, and obviously it doesn't work. The radio ends up exploding, which I assume that person is the person we see at the end of the episode, the beekeeper guy. And then Wanda just rewinds things. She says no, she rewinds it, and then nothing, like pretty much nothing happens. And that's how the episode ends. Like, we find out that she's going to be pregnant in the next episode. So going forward, they're going to deal with the kids, and then we'll see what they end up teasing in episode 3 as far as like the real world or whatever's going to happen. Seems like they're dealing with Sword based on the fact that the emblem is a sword. Sword, seemingly, based on this so far, they might not be the good guys like they are in the comic books. Sword is basically just the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D. So when they we're doing the stuff, if you're caught up on the MCU, the thing that they teased at the end of Captain Marvel, I was like, okay, that would basically be Sword. Captain Marvel tends to be involved with Sword. After she ends up leaving S.H.I.E.L.D., she goes to Sword, which is basically just the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is for Earth, Sword is for space. It's like everything that's out there, that's Sword. So I thought that's kind of what they were going to do. And now it seems like that might not be the case, but it still could be, because we technically don't know if we're on Earth. I just assume we are. They could be in space. They could be dealing with the Kree or the Skrull. They could be dealing with anything. This might not even be the characters from the MCU. If you really think about it, with them going into the multiverse stuff, it might get revealed that these are not even the actual same, Wanda and Vision from the movieverse. So who the F knows? We just have to wait and see. But the episodes themselves didn't really do much to entice me. It was just kind of like, all right, that's cool. They're cool episodes. The second one I thought was definitely funnier, but they just didn't do much. I was just like, I like them, but I could have waited until episode 3, because nothing happened. They're just okay, and the teasers that they gave weren't interesting enough. It's not like someone broke down and then they got replaced, and it's like, oh, it's me, and we see someone get swallowed. Like, nothing as interesting as what they could have done ends up happening. It's just like, okay, they tease someone is watching them as they're watching a show. I figured that out from the trailer. And then someone broke in, and then they rewound it. So even then, it's not going to go into the next episode where it's like, oh, it ends on this dramatic cliffhanger where they're forced to kind of face someone from the outside, and it's like, well, what's happening now? And then we see someone who, whoever's watching them, they have to react like, oh, crap, someone just broke in. So it's like, with her rewinding time, was that just rewound in the show? Did the person that's watching them on the TV, outside in the truck or wherever they are, did that person get rewound in time as well? So, like, once again, lots of questions. But they just didn't do that much. So I'm hoping a lot, honestly, that episode 3 is a bit more entertaining as far as the meat of the story and going into whatever is happening. I doubt we'll get any answers anytime soon, but I would at least love to see a character just get switched out, where it's like they meet them earlier in the episode and it's like a very big point, like this person is specifically doing this thing, and then later in the episode that same person comes in, but it's obviously a different actor, and it's like, oh, like something weird happens, like they almost force this person to question something and then they get replaced. So I would love to see that. I feel like that's kind of the little thing. Even then, it's a small thing, but I think it was more entertaining than what they could do, where the episode literally ends and they just pan out of the TV and someone's just like, okay, and then the episode ends, and it's just like, that's not interesting to me. It just shows that something's going on, which, once again, anyone that takes the time to watch this probably already saw the trailer and knows the premise is that they are inside this TV show and that they're already being watched. I mean, if you didn't see the first trailer, or if you didn't see the second one, because that's when they kind of showed that off, I guess you might not have known that. But even then, it's just like the most minute sort of teases, and it's just like, oh, okay, it's like something's gonna happen, but I don't think anyone expects anything to pop off in episode 3, because I don't know how many episodes we're gonna get, but odds are they won't jump right into that part of the story. So even teasing that stuff so early on, it doesn't really do much. And I'm like, they're just gonna tease it, and then nothing's gonna happen. Like, even the end of this episode, like I said, I was kind of excited because I was like, oh, they're gonna have to literally confront someone. And Wanda does something that is cool, admittedly, where she something snaps in her head where she realizes like, oh, I don't want this because it's gonna break whatever I'm trying to have here with Vision. So she just says no, and then rewinds the whole thing. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But I definitely would have preferred if they were confronted with whatever this weird version of reality is, just because I kind of want to see a bit of a push. I want to see how that affects them. What are these people on the outside going to do once Wanda and Vision start to force everyone to question, who they are and where they come from and things like that. And that's like the whole thing. That was like the most exciting part of the trailer, was people actually having to be like, I don't know who I am. Who are you? And like they have those moments, but they're so small. And for it to be the first hour of the show, the first 2 full episodes, and they don't even really touch on that too much, I was like, that's a little disappointing. That's kind of the most exciting part, is having random people kind of break character and become their actual selves, and it's like, what's going on here? And then it's like, oh crap, we gotta go in and do something. We gotta replace this person. And then when you switch them out, and then I felt like that was such a missed opportunity, especially for the first 2 episodes. I feel like we have to get that at some point where someone's gonna break, and then they do that. So I'm hoping it's in the next one. But I'm like, that's like the easiest thing to do. Just have a character break and be like, I don't know where I am. And then 15 minutes later, they come into the episode again, and it's like, I'm better, and it's just a totally different person. It's like, that's cool. Like, we just see the parts getting replaced. I think that would just be cool, even if they did that like on the set. But obviously that wouldn't make much sense because Wanda has magic, so anything that breaks, she could fix it herself. So they can't have like people come in and like, so it's not like Westworld where it's like, okay, freeze this, and then we go in and we replace things so everything looks normal. Like, I would like that, but obviously with a character that has reality warping powers, I think they're good on that one. But the people themselves, I want to see somebody get replaced in episode 3, because I feel like they haven't done anything to like really get me excited, because I'm like, everything they showed was a worse tease than the trailer, and I'm like, all right, I already knew this stuff. Let's get in, or let's at least have cooler teases. It's just especially the first episode, it was literally just a 50 sitcom parody episode, and in the very end, it just pans out and someone's watching it, and then the episode ends, and I was like, that was kind of boring. Like, not that it was fully boring, the episode was still entertaining, but admittedly, I think I was kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it never really did, especially during the dinner scene. I was like, oh, it's about to happen, and then once he plucked the food out, I was like, okay, I'm better. Great dinner, see you guys later. And then the episode just went off, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought something cool was going to happen. So those are my thoughts. I don't hate it or anything like that, but it certainly doesn't excite me. Admittedly, I'm not like excited for the next episode, even going off of these first 2. I think we're gonna have another good parody, but it's hard to tell if things are really gonna advance. They were close at the end, and then Wanda rewinds it, so they might get to that maybe like the halfway point of the next episode. Everything's in full color now, so that's kind of cool. But we'll just have to wait and see. I'm excited to actually watch the show as a whole, because I know by the end I'm gonna love it. Like, whatever they say is like the defining thing going forward into the rest of the MCU, I know I'm going to enjoy it, because it's going to be crazy, and I'm going to be like, oh, that's cool, and I can't wait to see what weird changes they add to, the rest of the films. But as of now, like, just by itself, the show itself doesn't do anything. It's really like, I know this will lead to something that I really love, or something that's going to be like super insane for, the next 10 years of the, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, this is like our first big step into whatever new craziness we're about to get. So I know I'm gonna like it, and I think that's the only thing that really does anything for the show. Other than that, it's like the show itself is just like, okay, good parodies. These could basically be some really high-end YouTube videos you check out, like, oh, somebody just wanted to make some classic parody episodes, and it's like, they did a great job. That's basically what happened, because nothing story-wise was really in these first 2 episodes. It didn't really go anywhere, do anything to even really pull me in wanting to see the 3rd episode. But I'm looking forward to it based on the overall cinematic universe. But as far as the show itself, it's like, okay, I'm sure I'll enjoy it. Just them doing the good parodies, and just the way they're going to go through with the magic and the different costumes and stuff like that, and now adding in the kids. I'm very excited to see how that plays out by the end of the series. But we'd love to know your thoughts on it. Just like I said, I'm just kind of like, not much there. So we'd love to know your thoughts, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, where we're headed. Like I said, they don't really tease much in these first 2 episodes. You get less from these first 2 episodes than you do in the trailer, which I guess is to be expected, because they show kind of like some end of the season type stuff, I would assume, from that trailer, like some really crazy things. So Wasn't expecting any of that sort of stuff in these first two, but they just really didn't do much. It was just like, oh, okay, they're being watched. People don't really know why they're wherever they are. They don't know why they're there. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I would love to know your thoughts on it. I definitely want to know your hopes and like your theories and like what you want to see happen from this. Are they going to bring back Quicksilver? I think that's the biggest question. Is he going to come back to life? Because that would be pretty sweet. Like if he pops up in an episode, that'll probably be the coolest thing. Like, okay, they might actually do some crazy stuff, which I think they will. I don't know if he'll officially come back, but they possibilities are endless. They might do a reverse House of M, where this is somehow how they introduce mutants into the MCU, where instead of getting rid of all the mutants like the comics, they introduce mutants. I don't know how they would do that. And it'll be super weird to finally hear somebody say mutants, because the only people that could do that were those in the Fox movies, so all the X-Men movies. But now that they've got that little merger going, we might I shouldn't say merger. Disney did what they did, and they just bought them. So with that, they can finally say, I don't know if they'll actually say mutants or anything like that, but it's like, now this could be a reverse House of M, and they introduce mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I'm excited for wherever they're headed. I like the commercials too. The first one was Stark. It was like the little Stark toaster. And the second one was Strucker, who, if I'm not mistaken, was the person that actually made Wanda and Quicksilver. It was like the descendant of like the World War II Strucker or whatever. I can't remember because it's been a minute since like the second Avengers movie, but I believe that's who it was. I think it was Strucker, a descendant of like the old Strucker that actually ended up doing that and creating them, whatever they called them when they first introduced them, because they couldn't use the word mutants. But like I said, first two episodes, for me personally. But we'll see where it heads. I know I'm excited for the end, but that's just because the trailer was like, hey, we're going to be leading into the next movie, with Doctor Strange and multiverses and all this. So who knows? This show could legitimately, I think it's going to change the game. I think with this leading into the whole multiverse thing, I don't think it's that crazy to be like, these aren't even the MCU versions of WandaVision. Because if it was after Endgame, it would be like, how did they get captured? They just got caught and then that was it? Like, that's super weird. So there's a million questions in there right now, but I would love to know your thoughts on these first two episodes, where we're headed, where you want us to go. Is this a reverse House of M, or are they adding mutants into the MCU officially by the end of this? Wanda's suddenly going to be like a bunch of mutants. I don't know how they do the inverse of no more mutants. Like, it's not going to sound as cool. But I would love to know your thoughts on where this show is actually going to go. What do you guys think of the parody? Because like I said, I used to watch a bunch of those old shows on reruns. Obviously, it wasn't born at the time when those shows were on. Great job for the parody. Like, that's why I think of like super high end, like crazy YouTube type of thing where someone just did a very special project. That's what I think of when I see these, just because of how they did the episodes so solitary. Like, it's just episode 1, and then it's just episode 2 with like a bit of a bigger tease at the end of episode 2. But all in all, I want to know what you guys think about it, what you want to see, what you thought about the parodies. Admittedly, what I think is like kind of a lack of overall story for these first two episodes and all of that stuff. I feel like I'm really harping on it, but I was so excited for this, and then we got 2 episodes, and I feel like we got nothing in those 2 episodes, so I'm like really disappointed, because I was like, oh man, like this is the next big step, and I was like, these first 2 episodes are not much of a step at all, just personally speaking. But want to know your opinion, so please put your comments down in the comment section below, and of course, thanks for watching.